So first and foremost, I want to thank God for allowing me to have a platform to give the people with no voice a voice. And secondly, I want to thank my listeners for taking the time to just listen to me for a second, for a minute. And for all those who watch and listens on YouTube, because I know I do not always have visuals. With this being the 90th episode, I want to take a spurt and do a rundown, topic by topic, one episode at a time. And on today's episode, I want to point out that things change time and time again. Because I know there's a lot of podcasts that talks about pop culture, that talks about religion, that talks about sports, that talks about the news, that talks about everything that's going on in social media. And I am no different. But the only difference is that I give a different side, a different narrative of being part of that entity. Social media, as I always say, is one of those places where we will have people that have no idea on what someone's going through in life, nor experienced, and they will have all this thought-provoking input or whatever type of input. And one of the biggest things that we should all consider is that, do we really know someone? Jeezy and Jeannie Mai. Hip hop artist, author, now former trap star, and daytime host from, I believe it is, I want to say not the real, but she's on the talk show with, you know, Adrian Malone and I want to say Tia, and I can't remember the other lady's name, but I'll get it. And it is the real. I do apologize. And Lonnie Love, which is interesting because I was like, that's no. But yeah, anyway, so there. It's been reported that Jeezy had filed for divorce from her after being married for 2 years. And of course, Twitter and social media ate it all up. Black Twitter ate it up. All the black women are like, yeah, this and that. And I'm like, my thing is this. For whatever reason, because I don't know if there has been a real report about it, but my whole point is, my whole reason why I brought it up is because I want to talk about divorce. Because I am someone who has been married and is now divorced. And I don't think a lot of people realize that there are people, like, when people get married, a lot of times it can be, more than just, love, of course, but from, a common person, average person who believe in marriage and believe in, that foundation and believe in family and, family oriented. Marriage is a big part of your life. It's a big decision. I know for me, you know, despite how some people might feel or believe, I got married because I wanted to be married to someone who I believed was meant for me. And say what you want to say. Interracial relationships can be beautiful, can be successful. However, I was married to a black woman, and though she was part of the, team swirl, meaning that, hey, she was into, you know, white guys, other guys, not just black guys in other sense, but it's like, who had a mixed child at the time. She was still a black woman, and our marriage did not last. Nonetheless, we have a child. We co-parent well. We get along. Sometimes we don't get along. We agree on some things. Sometimes we don't agree on some things. Marriage is a big deal. Marriage is a big deal, and I've been vocal as far as about what really caused our marriage to disband, which I feel the need that I really shouldn't have to keep addressing. But marriage is a big deal. So, but that's just me speaking for myself. However, like I said, I do not know Jeezy or Jenny Ma, and a lot of y'all making comments does not either. But at the same time, I understand. We all have the right to feel how we feel. When I'm a big on. Hey, if you put yourself out there on a public forum platform, you are then opening the door for people to comment. That's kind of how marriage is. Now, whatever rumors is out there, whatever foul is out there, it's at the end of the day, the only person that really knows is them and God. And with them being, parents of a, mixed child, it can be some differences. Like I said, even with reading said statements and said responses, like, from Jesus, like unreconcilable differences, and Jenny Ma being devastated, it's like, hey, we have to understand that things happen, things change. And the unfortunate thing in life a lot of times is that not everybody gets married for love. Some people get married for money. Some people get married for status, social status. Some people get married to have children. It's like there's many reasons, and for whatever reason that they got married, there's also a reason as far as why they divorced. I mean, regardless of whether we feel like it was short lived, there's some marriages that don't even last a day. So I think it's fair to say that they was in a long enough marriage to be able to have a beautiful child and co-parent and still have some type of fair enough relationship to where they will be able to raise their daughter, and for me, like, my only thing is like divorce it's one of those things you can't just get over. I know a lot of people will think differently, but it goes back against the trend narrative. I remember, I will say, when I used to, when me and my ex-wife separated, we were still legally married. And regardless of whether she was dating someone or I was dating someone else, that was still, my wife at the time of when, it's not over until it's over. Sometimes we have to remember that even if we feel like we have no longer a relationship, there are still those formalities, those technicalities that, say, okay, this is still your spouse until it is not. As far as the law is concerned, as far as God is concerned, y'all are still tied to one another until you take the proper steps to no longer be. That's the reality of it. That is the 100% reality of it. And even today, I'm one who is still learning as far as what my future holds as far as on the romantic side. Sometimes I want to date. Sometimes, I want to mingle. Sometimes I, want to be in a domestic partnership. Sometimes I want to be married again. Sometimes I do not. But at the same time, because that is a big part of life. And, people will always have something to say. And I don't want to say, and I don't want to sit here and generalize, but it's like, I don't go by what the world thinks it should go by. I understand it. I acknowledge it. I recognize it. I accept it. But I don't have to subscribe to it. And that's another thing also that I will discuss for a later time, which is accepting, or subscribing to certain truths. But the thing is, divorce is not by any means easy. I feel as though there can be reasons too, because again, sometimes it's not always involving infidelity. It doesn't always involve abuse. It doesn't always involve finances. Sometimes it can be dealing with unhappiness or whatnot. But that's marriage. Like marriage is a big part of a person's life, to where you make a decision. When you make a hard decision or make a decision to even get married, you are making a decision to not be married any longer is still a big thing. And I think sometimes there's these things that are missing. Like when people decide to get married, they have these discussions before they get married, and the guidelines and all these things that are taking place are either forgotten or disregarded. Because like me and my ex-wife, we had talked about marriage and the do's and don'ts, the red flags, and the red flags and all the deal breakers. My fortune just said no one has a good enough memory to make a successful liar. That's true. How ironic. But all in all, I'm going through the ringer right now. Like, my blessings goes out to couples who are going through a divorce. Whether it's a negative or positive, my blessings still go out because I know it isn't something that we can just be like, hey, I'm gonna go to divorce and you're gonna get it. Because we all make mistakes, we all make bad decisions, we all been there. Even people who've been married, sometimes they believe and feel like, hey, this is the one, they found the one, then something might change. And that's the thing, I think we just have to be a little bit more mindful and in touch with our divine faith before we make certain decisions, life-changing decisions, like children, marriage, maybe buying a home. Because people will always also talk about, as far as the financial side of it. But I remember one thing my dad said after my wedding. All this might be nice, but remember when y'all leave here, when y'all leave this church, when y'all leave this congregation with your loved ones, this is you and hers. You and hers. Another fortune, 9/10 of education is encouragement. How ironic. But yeah, my my take on divorce is, it's not. I'm not going to say it's divinity. I'm not going to say it's divine because whatever decision you make, it's a decision that we have to live with. But it can turn into that later down the line. Because I always say, whether God does have a partner for for us or not, He's not going to make our decisions. There will be some divine intervention. Like I said, there could have been something to stop this. There could have been something to stop marriages. There could be something to prevent divorces, but things happen. So, when we get divorced, when people get divorced, I feel like there is a decision that's made. Some people might be like, hey, you violated, that's it. I'm not, nothing to think about, it's over. And it's like, man, how do you do that? But like I say, going outside looking in relationships, when it comes to people's relationships, we don't know how many times someone might have violated. But I do know that when you're in a marriage and there is violation, that's something that is not to be taken lightly because y'all are married. I think there's certain things that one must know or must be able to maintain before even taking that step. Because me as a co-parent, there are things that has to, things that I have to think about in regards to not just my son, but also his mother. Because remember, when they say happy wife, happy life, but people don't talk about, a happy husband. A happy husband, a safe home. That doesn't rhyme, but it is what it is. It's like, when we, married men are put under pressure to feel like, they have to always lead, they have to always protect, they have to always provide. And I think that's another thing that people misconstrue, because it's like, God is the provider, God is the protector. Yes, men must take the lead. This is your home, this is your family that you're protecting. You are the man. Forget about the new society of gender role reversal and stuff, but it's still like, okay, God is the one who you have to keep in that, you have to keep God in the relationship. And you can be a atheist, you can be a Satanist, and none of that stuff. Like when you, like, some people might get married out here in the streets, but it's like, how do you, what's the foundation? There's always going to be that bar, but it's like you have to remember that a marriage does require two people, and one support God. And I'm gonna just leave it there. Like, I don't really care as far as what other people say or their opinions. God is that band that holds things together. That's why, like, it's not, I don't think there's any divinity in that. I think when you make a decision, you make that decision, and then if you choose to fall away from, that route, from that route, from that band, and you decide to break that band, that is a decision that you have to live with. But I'll be back. The next episode, I will be discussing something outside, something that has nothing to do with, you know, well, no, I am going to talk about it. The next episode, stay tuned. But as always, stay safe, stay productive, and positive. This is Blair, your cancer care bear, and I'll be back in a minute.